So, how does one single piece of economic news just explode into this huge, unfiltered conversation online? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down today. We're going to look at how a single data point can unleash this torrent of personal stories, political fights, and some really deep seated fears, all from one Reddit thread. Let's dive in. Okay, so it all started right here with this one number, negative 92,000. It's simple, it's stark, and it is powerful. This one figure was the catalyst, the spark that lit the fuse on this massive online discussion about the economy, and more importantly, how people are actually feeling about it. And this was the headline that got the ball rolling on Reddit. Now, just to be super clear, we're not here to debate the report itself. What we're really digging into is the reaction it caused. This headline was like a magnet, just pulling in hundreds and hundreds of comments that paint this incredible picture of the public mood. So the first, and honestly the biggest reaction, wasn't one of surprise. Not at all. It was this widespread, almost cynical feeling of validation. This collective sense that the official numbers were finally catching up to what so many people were already living through every single day. This comment from user Donick just absolutely nails that sentiment. For a lot of folks, this wasn't news. It was just confirmation of a really harsh reality they'd been dealing with for a while, a reality they felt was getting ignored or kind of sugar-coated by other, more upbeat headlines. And look, this wasn't just some vague frustration. People immediately started sharing real, concrete examples, these little signals from their own work lives that things were slowing down, even in industries that people used to think were totally bulletproof. I mean, take this user, MemberZs. They said they're in an always-on-demand industry, but they noticed a huge drop in messages from recruiters. And that's the key right there, isn't it? When even people in the high-demand jobs are seeing things get quiet, it's a pretty strong sign that the whole market is starting to cool off. The entire thread was just packed with these personal stories of struggle. It really became the space for people to vent about a job hunt that felt harder and harder, and for some just completely hopeless. And this exchange, it just illustrates that feeling perfectly. A super simple question from one user, is anyone hiring? And it gets this immediate, heartfelt response from someone else. It just captures that shared feeling of futility that so many people in that thread were going through. Well, of course, you know what was coming next. It didn't take long at all for the conversation to get political. The economic data was immediately shoved through a partisan filter, with people on both sides ready to point the finger for the bad news. And here you have it, two totally opposite takes right next to each other. One user sees this as a totally predictable outcome of one party's policies. Then another user pulls up different numbers to slam the other party's messaging. It's just a classic example of how the exact same event can be used to fuel completely different political arguments. But in the middle of all the finger-pointing, some people did take a step back. This comment here questions the whole idea of the blame game itself, pointing out that presidents don't really have a magic wand to control these massive economic forces. A bit of nuance that, let's be honest, usually gets lost in the political shouting. So, moving beyond the immediate political stuff, the conversation also touched on this really deep anxiety for the future. Specifically, what this whole economic situation means for young people who are just trying to get their careers started. And this slide kind of breaks down that fear. One user laid out this potential domino effect. Entry-level jobs are drying up, but you have more and more educated grads fighting for fewer and fewer positions. That could lead to a whole generation of underemployed people, which then makes you start to question the value of that expensive college degree in the first place. And this brings us to what might be the most important theme in this whole thing, this huge gap between the high-level economic stats we hear about and the financial reality that a lot of people are actually living.
This user's comment just nails it. The sarcasm highlights a paradox that makes so many people frustrated. How can the stock market be heading all-time highs while so many people are struggling to find a job? It honestly feels like two completely different worlds.
This table really just lays that reality gap out visually. On one hand, the official story is record highs on Wall Street, record corporate profits. But the public feeling we saw online tells a totally different story of a terrible job market and desperation. This gap, this is at the very heart of all the confusion and the anger. Living with these contradictions, it takes a serious emotional toll. And running through this entire thread was this unmistakable sense of exhaustion, of people just feeling completely worn out by this constant stream of crises and conflicting messages. And this quote, wow, It's raw, for sure, but it is so powerful because it's so relatable. It just captures that feeling of being totally overwhelmed, of living through what feels like a never-ending cycle of once-in-a-lifetime events that just leaves you feeling drained and traumatized. So really, what this whole online reaction boils down to is a single, really tough question. When the official reports sound like they're coming from another planet compared to your own reality, which story do you trust? And what does it mean when so many people decide to trust their own experience over the data? That's something to think about.